Posted by you/scaredoff-snake. My husband, 26M, and I, 24F, used to own a small corn snake, but 6 months ago, it unexpectedly passed away. He was a cute little guy and still very young, and my husband and I were both very upset. My husband has owned several small reptiles during his lifetime, and he told me he was thinking of trying a milk snake this time instead of a corn or a garter. Instead, 2 months after our corn passed, he came home with a baby Burmese python. Apparently, it's always been his dream to own a Burmese. Not only am I pissed that he got something like that without consulting me, but I had several reservations that have only grown since we've owned it. 1. I have generalized anxiety disorder, and that thing triggers my anxiety like nothing else. When I was doing research about Burmese pythons, I kept reading stories about them unaliving pets, children, and even their owners, so now I'm freaked out and have barely slept for 4 months. This is made worse by the fact that my husband has no experience with large snakes, and the larger the python grows, the more it shows, especially since we also have a cat. The other snakes we've had, our corn snake and my husband's old garter snake, pose no threat, but now I constantly worry that the python is going to get out and eat her. I've taken to locking the cat in our bedroom at night, which interferes with our sleep because she meows and scratches at the door, and I constantly worry about her when she's home alone. 2. I'll reiterate, this thing is freaking huge, he is already 6 feet long. 3. I'm home more than my husband, so I have to feed it and change its substrate often. I hate doing both so much, especially now that he's graduated to eating rabbits and pigs. I honestly think that since my husband bought him without consulting me, caring for it should be his sole job, but I'm not going to let it go hungry or live in its own waste out of pride. 4. I honestly don't think we'll be able to give this snake the best quality of life, which I believe is essential for all pets. He's getting too big for the tank he's in, which is his 3rd since we've gotten him, and I don't think we have the room in our house for the enclosure my husband wants to build. His food is very expensive and eating into our savings, but it's what he needs, so we can't downgrade. The python does not deserve to live in a tiny space and eat inadequate food just because my husband wanted one as a kid. At the same time, it's a real possibility it could eat us out of house and home. 5. I don't want kids while we own a python, and these things can live up to 20 years. I don't want to give up on having children, which I've always dreamed of, because of a python. Because of all these reasons, but especially the concerns about our cat and the python's quality of life, I think we should rehome the snake, preferably to a wildlife sanctuary or something. I've gently brought all of this up to my husband, how much mental anguish it causes me, how worried I am for our cat, how the snake is unsustainable, and all he's done is tell me to get over it, accuse me of not caring about his happiness, and say I'm being prejudiced against animals that aren't cute and cuddly. None of this is true, not even the last accusation. I liked his smaller snakes a lot. Update 1 week later. First of all, I have to say thank you for the outpouring of support I received, especially from the reptile enthusiasts who happen to be browsing this sub. You guys are awesome. Now, I just want to say up front, so that everyone hears what they want to hear, the snake is gone, and my cat is all right. Here's how it happened. Thursday night, while I was replying to people on my post, several people suggested talking to my husband's friend, who owns Burmese pythons, is an experienced reptile keeper, and could be a huge help. I was too blinded by the situation and my own anxiety to even think of that. I messaged him on Facebook Thursday night and told him the situation. He was shocked at just how bad things were, but apparently, he had tried to warn my husband that owning small snakes and then jumping to a Burm is like thinking owning house cats makes you qualified to own a tiger, but my husband didn't listen. He's been busy going to reptile shows, dude breeds venomous cobras, he's kind of a legend, so he only saw the snake in person once when we first got it and was immediately disturbed when I told him about the overfeeding, my husband's desire to start it on live food, and the fact that it free roams and is handled alone. He told me he'd come over the next day and give my husband a real talking to, as well as do anything he could to help us rehome it. I decided I couldn't live another day in a house like that, and neither could my cat, so Friday morning I moved out to my mother's while my husband was at work. It was a bit sneaky, but I knew that if I tried to leave while he was home, he'd try to convince me to stay. I called him on his lunch break and told him I'd left until the snake was gone. He was very upset and started accusing me of being so petty as to let a snake wreck our marriage. I had nothing productive to say to that, so I told him I'd talk to him later. Well, my husband's friend was so angry at what he saw of the snake that when he got to the house while my husband was home from work, he gave him the tongue lashing of his life. He told him in plain terms that, now that he saw how woefully inadequate we were as big snake keepers, there was no way he was going to let the snake stay at our house. Being yelled at really affected him. When my husband drove over to my mother's to talk to me, he looked like a kicked puppy. He broke down and told me that he loved me, that he was sorry for the hell he put me through, and that it had taken having reason yelled at him by an expert for him to really see what was going on. He said he now understood that the snake could no longer live with us. I knew that, At that point, the sorrow he felt was more about having his snake taken away, not real understanding, at least, not yet. So don't worry, he's not completely off the hook. It was cathartic to hear, though. His friend contacted a herpetology society he works with regularly, and a member of that society, whose specialty is rehabilitating snakes that irresponsible pet owners get and then mistreat, offered to take the snake to his ranch. So, the snake went to this guy's ranch yesterday, where he'll be fed the right food, and go on a diet, apparently, and live in a space big enough for him. My husband and I have talked a lot about this, and he acknowledged that his fervent desire to fulfill his childhood dream made him careless and selfish. He admitted that he wasn't trying to be malicious towards me, but he wanted the snake so badly that he'd do and say anything to keep it. It still seems, though, that he hasn't fully learned his lesson, which I'm not expecting this early, but it's still a bit disappointing. He talked yesterday about getting a ball python, and I put my foot down. I don't think we should get another snake for a long time. On Sunday, I sat him down and asked him to tell me the truth about how he got the python, because walking into a pet shop for a milk snake, and just finding a Burmese was sounding more and more implausible the more I thought about it. He admitted that he had arranged to get one from a breeder online while telling me he wanted a smaller snake, meaning he was actively lying to me. This breeder is also in another state, meaning my husband participated in something illegal when he met up with him to get it, since transporting Burmese pythons across state lines is against the Lacey Act. I'm very angry about this. I'm upset about his lies, and I'm upset that he blew me off for months. He admitted he lied because he knew I'd say no, which shows such immaturity that it almost disgusts me. I'm upset that he broke the law. I'm upset that he only listened to what I said when it came from someone else. Apparently, he's been having a quarter-life crisis that he didn't tell me about, because he feels that he should have accomplished more with his life by 26, he never went to college. I feel sympathy for him in that regard, but that's no excuse to treat me badly. I moved back home with my cat last night, but our marriage is in serious jeopardy right now due to the lying and the lack of respect my husband has shown me. However, I made vows to stick with him, and I don't take those lightly. We're going to be getting counseling, which I hope will help him truly understand what was wrong with his actions, rather than just giving a knee-jerk response to being in trouble, so to speak, and will strengthen our relationship. If not, well, I'll have to consider my options. Second update 1 month later. Hi, I'm back. The snake is still gone, but I guess I'm returning out of desperation. People messaged me wanting to know how I was doing anyway. On the surface, therapy has been going well. My husband has been doing everything right. He's been contrite, open-minded, and treats me like a princess at all times. I can tell at home that he's making a conscious effort to listen to my opinions and thoughts and incorporate our therapist's suggestions into our lives. I feel like the biggest jerk saying this, but I don't think it's enough. Over these past weeks, I've had to come to terms with the fact that something about how I view my husband has fundamentally changed. Finally, after extensive soul-searching a few days ago, I realized what it was. I have no respect for his intelligence anymore, after all this. That is very, very important to me, and now it's just gone. I don't know how it can come back without him undergoing a personality overhaul. It's ended my physical attraction to him. I normally have a high libido, and prior to all this, we made love 4 to 5 times a week. Now, since everything went down, we've been intimate 3 times. To be fair, while the snake was here, we were down to 2 to 3 times a week, but it was still more frequent than this. Despite all the changes he's making, he's still himself, and I don't think I can like who I know him to be now. He's still his goofy, absent-minded self who needs me to balance the checkbook and pack his lunch. I can't respect that anymore. I don't want to be his mom or a naggy sitcom wife. I used to love doing these things for him. Throughout our relationship, I've taken care of him, patched him up, and helped him solve his problems. I always saw it as the ultimate expression of love. Now I'm just sick of it. He can tell something's still wrong. He's irritated by my lack of forgiveness and my lack of a bedroom drive lately, even though he's objectively doing all the right things. But his lack of understanding toward my apprehension only makes my feelings more pronounced. I realized the other day that I love him dearly as a friend. I've known him since I was 9 years old, but no longer as a husband. That devastates me. I can't believe I'm thinking about divorce after less than a year of marriage. I feel like such a failure. I haven't broached these feelings in therapy yet, because they crystallized only a few days ago. But I don't know how to start, because I know saying them will mean my marriage is over. I've talked to my mom and friends about this, and they all tell me to wait longer, to stick it out, because I made vows. But I feel like I've discovered something fundamental about my husband that I wish I never had, and now nothing can be the same. Third update 9 years later. 10 years ago, I posted on r/relationships about being scared of my ex-husband's giant snake. Here is an update. One of my friends sent me a link to my post saying, "I think you wrote these posts." And after reading them, yeah, I did. A lot of people seem to be wondering what happened to me, so I logged into this account for the first time in 10 years to give one final update on what happened. I'm posting here because I'm not quite sure where to post. I feel like our relationships isn't really a thing anymore. Basically, my ex-husband brought home a Burmese python after telling me he wanted a milk snake. I was really scared of it and anxious, but he was dismissive of my worries. I ended up having the snake shipped off to a reptile ranch, but it completely shattered my trust in my ex because he had lied to me. It also made me realize that he relied on me to do everything for him, like a second mother, and that I hated that. I really tried to work through the feelings I posted about in the second update, but after 3 months, we separated. It's totally okay if you judge me for this because I judge myself. After being separated for half a year, we ended up having sex. My grandma had just passed, I was devastated, and he came to the funeral to support me since he had known her forever and loved her too. We went home together after the family lunch and ended up having comfort sex. Neither of us wanted kids at that point, but my IUD had slipped into my cervix at some point before this, and I ended up getting pregnant. Both of us were unsure about introducing a kid into our relationship, but we decided to get back together and make another effort. I had always wanted to be a mom and didn't want to terminate. We found out pretty early into the pregnancy that it was actually a molar pregnancy, meaning that instead of a normal fetus, I was pregnant with a tumor. I had the mole removed, but I was one of those lucky people who develop cancer from their molar pregnancy. Fortunately, the cancer was caught when I was only at stage 2 and responded really well to chemotherapy. I've been cancer-free since 2016. However, my ex's behavior when I was extremely sick from chemo, we had stayed together after losing the pregnancy, made me put my foot down and want a divorce. He wouldn't, or couldn't, pick up the slack around the house, and I couldn't deal with it anymore. I felt like I couldn't depend on him for anything, not even when I had cancer. Literally a week after I was told I was cancer-free, I told him I was moving out and wanted a divorce. I lived with my mom for a year while our divorce was being finalized and a bit after that, and then decided to get a job in a new city because I needed a fresh start. I also decided to fulfill a dream I had been mulling over for a while and went back to college to get my BSN, Bachelor of Science in Nursing, in 2017. I graduated in 2019 because I was in an accelerated program for people who already had another degree, and I now work as a neonatal nurse. The job can be really challenging and difficult, but it's so amazing to watch tiny and sick babies grow, thrive, and eventually go home. I feel like I've found my calling. I also met a guy in my class when I went back to school. We were just friends for 2 years because I didn't feel ready to date, and then in 2019, we started dating. That guy is now my husband. We got married in 2022. My current husband is the most amazing man and partner I could have ever asked for. I can fully lean on him, and he can lean on me. And I don't have to ask him to please pick his socks up off the floor. He even does most of the cooking because I hate cooking. Due to my cancer treatment, I went into premature ovarian failure, so we are going to start IVF in the new year with eggs I had frozen before my chemo began. We also want to adopt and or foster at some point and have been looking into that as well. I know for sure my husband is going to be a wonderful support for me and an amazing father. At the time of my divorce, I had no confidence my ex would be either of those things. I don't want to just bash my ex, though. He's doing much better since we got divorced. A month after I left for good, he attempted to take his own life and was placed on a 72-hour hold at the hospital. He took their advice to follow up with a psychiatrist seriously and was diagnosed with ADHD, which explains so much about how he was when we were together. A little later on, he was also diagnosed with autism. I don't speak to my ex because it's too painful for both of us, but my mom is still close to his mom and has given me some updates. He's taking medication that has really helped his ADHD and was able to go to trade school. He has a much better job now and has been in a steady relationship. I wish him all the best. I look back on my old posts, and all I can do is shake my head. I was putting up with so much that I would never tolerate now. I also thought I was so grown up because I was 24 and married, but clearly, I still had maturing to do. Part of me feels sad for my ex too, because he was struggling for so long, and I was writing him off as unhelpful. However, even though he had a medical reason for being inconsiderate, I still had to do what was best for me, and I had reached my breaking point. Considering his success, I think we're both better off without each other. Oh, and I still talk to my ex's friend, the cobra breeder, from time to time. Bucatini, the Burmese python, is still doing great in his new home.